Welcome everybody to another edition of Raising the NASBAR. I'm Jeff Lasky, the CEO of this great organization, the North Shore Barrington Association of Realtors. I could not be more pleased to have one of our great strategic partners with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you, Jamie Dunsing.
Hi, Jeff.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you know what? You've got a long background to talk about, so I'm going to let you talk. Since you're the expert, I'm going to let you talk about.
Sure.
And I know a lot of our people have met you already, at our events because you've been at a ton of them. But why don't we start with some background and
Sure.
and let you roll with that.
Okay. So background, I have been doing inspections now this is my 34th year doing inspections, so I'm kind of a veteran at this point. I don't do inspections any longer. But I'm in the process of building a team that is really top quality. We have a company that my parents actually started. My mother started our company, and I was coming out of college, worked for some construction companies, and started. My dad sort of made me the offer you can't refuse, and said, "Would you like to come to work for the family business?" And I've told people this over the years. So I took a pay cut, came to work for the family business, and here I am 34 years later.
Yeah. Now, was it? I say sound. I know that one dreams of becoming an inspector per se, right? But was it something that while you were in college, you were saying to yourself, well, I'm going to go to work for dad someday or whatever?
No. I come from a family that has been self-employed. My brother is self-employed. I have one sibling. My grandparents on both sides were self-employed. My parents were self-employed. My dad was a general contractor originally. My college degree was in construction related. A little shout out to my Purdue Boilermakers.
There you go.
Hashtag boiler up. So I got a construction degree, so I knew I wanted to be in construction, but I had no clue what home inspections and building inspections were all about. That was not my dream.
Right. And so when your dad made you this offer you couldn't refuse, were you kind of going in as a newbie, like you didn't really know the stuff? Or?
Totally, yeah. I was 26 years old, I guess it was. Had really no clue about what the whole real estate process was. I had actually just purchased a home, so I knew a little bit about sort of the basics on it, but I had no idea of sort of where a home inspection fits in the whole puzzle of the real estate process or purchase process.
So I'm just curious. I mean, before you decided to take that offer from your dad, what were you thinking about career-wise?
Construction for sure. I had met my wife at that point. I was working for a large general contractor down in the Loop in Chicago, building hotels at that time. It was the company that actually built the Sears Tower. So this was a large construction company. I did have an opportunity to take a job with them in London, England. They were going to open a new office there and start doing construction. And I said no, I didn't want to take it. Internally, it was because I had met my wife, the love of my life. She is the love of my life.
We can cut that out, right, Andrew?
So we would edit that. So I wanted to stay home and court my wife, so to speak. We've talked about it since then, and we laugh about it. She says, I wish you would have taken that job because she would have gone with me. So it would have been a really cool start to our married relationship.
Now you tell me.
Now you tell me. I was years into the home inspection business at that point.
All right. Well, so now what? But okay. So when you went to work and was it Dunsing Inspections at that point?
The company was Dunsing Consultants back then.
Consultants. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you went to work for Dunsing Consultants, I mean, you did know your way around a building.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't exactly like you had to be trained from the ground up, at least, right? So,
No. I knew the nuts and bolts, the construction aspects of things. What I really didn't know, and it took me a long time to figure this out, was the communication skills. That is when we hire. So we've talked in the past. We're a company that is trying to grow. Probably the most important part when we're hiring specifically inspectors is they need to have good communication skills.
Okay, and you're talking about with the customer or?
With everybody.
With everybody. Okay.
We do a lot of teamed inspections. So we'll send, like today, we happen to have a large inspection going on. We've got 4 inspectors at this property. They need to communicate amongst themselves, but they also need to communicate with typically the homeowner might be there, a couple of real estate agents, and certainly the client. So the communication is really important across the board.
I gotcha. And about what year, when you first came to Dunsing Consultants, what year was that?
1989.
Okay, so that was 1989. So I'm guessing, I suspect, educated guess, that inspections are a little different today
Yes.
than they were back then. So I'm like, maybe take us a trip down memory lane, so to speak, and kind of talk about how inspections were back then and how they are today.
Sure. So, boy, things have changed. Back then, this is prior to even doing carbonless forms. So we had inspectors that would use a mini micro cassette recorder. They would make their notes. We had actually 2 typists back then, because when I entered the business, we had, I think, 4 or 5 inspectors in the company. But we had micro cassettes. We would hand those off to the person to do the typing. They would literally, on an electric typewriter, they would type these things up. The inspectors would have to come in the next day to proofread, and if there were mistakes that were made or changes that needed to be made, we literally would wipe things out. It was that basic. And then the final report we would copy so that there weren't the bumpy whiteout things on the report. But that was the first thing. Then we changed and went to carbonless, and probably in the mid-90s we went to digital things. Probably the biggest game changer in the business has been digital photography. So I do recall, if anybody remembers Polaroid cameras, we used to use Polaroid cameras way back when, and we would take photos for ourselves and we would take photos for clients and divvy the photos up at the end of the inspection. But because they were fairly expensive, it was a pretty limited number of photos that we would take. But digital cameras have made a huge difference in inspections. Computers obviously have now, we have comment libraries. From a standpoint of what we inspect, things have not changed a whole lot. I'm still a very hands-on person, and that's what I preach. So it's getting in attics, getting on roofs, getting in crawl spaces. It is not a glamorous job by any stretch of the imagination. The other part of it is the number of services that inspection companies provide. Way back when, we only did home inspections. I do remember when we started to offer radon testing, but now it has evolved into a pretty sizable amount of core services: sewer surveys, drone inspections with helicopters, thermal imaging, chimney scans, stucco and moisture testing that we can do. There's a whole list of different services. Mold testing is something we just introduced.
I got you. So now, I've got all right, let me focus on 2 or 3 questions. And if a new agent, a new broker comes to you, okay, I'm trying to figure out how exactly would they know, okay, how to ask for those services from you. How do they learn about that, I guess?
Yeah, we do not do a lot of hard selling. When people call us to schedule an appointment, we will explain the basics on what we do. We typically send out an email to our clients confirming what services we're going to do, and it offers a menu of additional services they may want to do. Agents that we have worked with in the past on a number of occasions have done a pretty good job of saying, look, we know we want, like sewer is a very common thing that we do. We know we want a home inspection, we want a sewer survey, and we want radon testing. I attribute a lot of that to our marketing and messaging director, Kristen Marsden, who you know, has done a really good job of sort of explaining the different breadth of services that we can offer to agents and to clients. So to answer your question, it comes through soft selling, and the email that the people receive says, you may want to consider these services. And we get a surprising number of people that will add services on after they've confirmed the initial appointment.
Okay, so after the appointment, I'm thinking about are there occurrences when you'll do an inspection and then say to the customer, I recommend these.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, right?
Yes, the 2 that come up the most would be sewer, where we can run a cam through the sewer, and mold. We just started offering mold this year. But we've already had instances where our inspector will get in an attic, for instance, see something that they suspect is mold, and rather than go the route that we used to say we think there may be mold, now we can say, look, we'll do a test for this. We're going to send it into a laboratory. It's going to be analyzed. Then we'll know if it's mold. Then you know, do you really have an issue or not?
Gotcha. Okay. That's extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Is there a big difference between inspecting a small home, and a large home, right? I guess that's an obvious question, right? But,
Yeah, there are certain systems that you want to do on every home. So a little 1,200 square foot ranch, we probably want to do the home inspection and a sewer test and probably a radon test. Large homes, same thing. When we start getting into some of the bells and whistles, for instance, that a big house may have, fireplaces would be a great example. There are additional services that we can add on, and we can do those inspections for people. One of my kind of future dreams is that we would be sort of the real one-stop shop and be able to say, look, we have an appliance person that can do appliance, really in-depth appliance inspections. We have environmental person that can do everything in addition to mold and radon testing. They can do indoor air quality. They can check for asbestos, lead paint, that sort of stuff. We have maybe a structural engineer on staff that can come in and really look in depth, rather than what currently happens with most home inspection companies. If we see something that's a suspect problem, we'll refer that out to a specialist, a roofer, a structural engineer, that kind of a thing.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and you went right where I was thinking about, because you had mentioned to me before we started about, you're thinking about how you want to, build this team, right? You mentioned it at the beginning of Raising the NASBAR today about, building the team. And so it sounds to me like you want to have that position as really being the mentor, helping these other people do their inspections.
Absolutely.
And overseeing that, right?
Yep.
And when I was thinking about myself is internally here at NASBAR, I talk to the staff quite a bit about being the conductor, okay? And what I mean by that simply is that I don't play those instruments, right? I don't know how to play those instruments in many cases. And even when I do, I don't play it as well as the staff person does, right? But my job isn't to play their instruments. My job is to get them to play their instruments together, make that beautiful music. And what I thought was interesting in thinking about this is that I didn't start from the bottom up here, okay? While I certainly have done that, while I've started in other positions, I haven't done every position. In your business, I bet you pretty much know everything, enough. So my question for you is, how do you handle managing? I'm just interested in a different perspective as the conductor of your business. Yeah,
so it's interesting that you use the word conductor. We just came out with a really formal dictate, if you want to call it, with our inspectors. And I'm going to go two different directions with this. When we do inspections on larger homes, or we do inspections on homes that have multiple services, we usually send a team out. We're very respectful of people's times. We want to get in and out of these homes in 3 hours or less. So on again, today we're inspecting a 10,000 square foot home. We've got 3 or 4 people there. They're going to be able to do all those services and get everybody, hopefully they'll be able to be out of there by lunchtime. If it goes a little long, that's fine. But the key to what I'm alluding to there is we appoint one person as the lead or the conductor, and that person does some inspecting, but he or she oversees the other people and makes sure that all the tasks are done. So that conductor thing is important at the ground level when we're doing inspections. As a business owner, and just to be clear, I'm a co-business owner. My wife is the other half of this wonderful organization. We consider ourselves to be conductors. So we hire, motivate, train, all that stuff to make sure that everybody has the tools that they need, the instrument that they need to do the best job. And my ideal scenario on that would be that in a period of time, Jamie steps away from the business altogether and has that whole orchestra or that whole band or that whole group together, and somebody else takes over the the conducting of the orchestra. So
Yeah, well,
we're very conscious of what you're asking about.
No, I get that. That makes a ton of sense to me. You guys are obviously experiencing great success, and I know that you're the level is platinum, right? You're a platinum strategic partner at NASBAR. So I would be wholly criticized by staff if I didn't ask you about why you found it to be beneficial, why it's been great or helpful to Dunsing Inspections that you are a platinum strategic partner.
It's really the connections that we make with the top agents, new agents, people that we can help them, they can help us. That's been probably the biggest benefit of becoming a diamond sponsor or a platinum sponsor. Our affiliation with NASBAR provides us with access and communication with real estate agents and realtors, and then they can know that they're working with really a top-notch company that's going to provide the level of service. So the platinum sponsorship has really opened a lot of doors for us from that standpoint.
That's great. Well, and again, and I don't know if our members know this, but it's not just like, it's not the pulse test, blow on a mirror test for our strategic partners. We don't just let anybody become a strategic partner. At the same time, win-win, right? I mean, it's you guys are making an investment in this organization, but you expect a return on that investment. And so that's why we're happy to provide to our members, as you suggested, top-notch, real professional organizations that they can work with. I know we're running short on time here. Most important thing for our members to know about inspections, what would you say?
Probably know that the inspector, we really don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak. We're not contractors. So we're coming into these inspections with providing our clients with the best knowledge, the most knowledge we can to make an informed decision. Too often we've had people say to us or think that we have some reason to either kill a deal or to push something through, and that's not the case at all. We really are just there to provide people with information, let them make the decision, and they can either move forward or not.
Yeah, I suspect you'd love for every inspection you did to show that there was nothing wrong with the property, right?
That would be my ideal.
Yeah.
I've heard this over the years that agents say, well, the inspector is trying to find problems to justify their fee. That's absolutely not the case. We're just there to be an impartial observer, and let's be honest, we're there to find defects. So that has to be, that is our job, and that has to be understood. Agents can really do everybody a favor by kind of staying out of the way on that, from that standpoint. Let the inspector do their job. I know Kristen has talked about this when she comes in to talk with new agents. Somebody that introduces her, I think Deborah, always says to the agents, make sure that you stay out of the inspector's way. They are doing their job. You are not an inspector, and you need to be very careful about where you land on putting an opinion in there.
Yeah, in fact, I've heard her say that before.
Kristen actually said, she wrote this down. She said, we've been lucky enough to speak to NASBAR new member classes a few times. Each time Deborah DeBoer introduces us, saying to the class, you are not an inspector. Please let the inspector do their job. We so appreciate that perspective. Inspectors are licensed, highly trained, knowledgeable. Please trust them as the professional and expert that they are.
To wrap things up, what's your big rocks for 2023? What do you think?
Yeah, we come up with a sort of a motto or call it a motto every year. 2023 is the year of opportunity. Interestingly, our license, we have to be licensed to do inspections. Our license, we're up for renewal in November, the end of November 2022. There's been a 30% drop off in the number of licensed inspectors, which surprised me.
That surprised me too.
I feel this is our opportunity to come in and really grow as a company, and that is one of our stated goals, is we want to grow. Currently, we have 9 inspectors, 16 total office people working with the company, or total people working with the company. We'd like to at least double that. That's not going to happen fast, but that is one of them. One of the other big rocks, we started to do mold testing this year. It's working really, really well. Something sort of related to that, we're starting a new branch of the company where we want to help other inspection companies. We know that most home inspection companies are one-man businesses. We know they want to be able to offer additional services and still get in and out of an inspection in a reasonable amount of time. We're going to reach out to all of our colleagues and offer up our services. We're doing it for a fee. We're not going to do this for nothing. But we want them to be able to come in and say, look, I've assembled a team of people that can do some of the other services we do: mold, sewer, radon, thermal imaging. So don't be surprised if you see us showing up at inspections where we're not doing the home inspection, but we're doing some of the other services.
All right. Boy, that sounds like a great idea. On the way out, anything we forgot to talk about? Any other messages you might have for our members out there?
Yeah, the big thing. This is interesting with our licensing law at the beginning of 2022 had some changes to it, and one of the changes that came out was that we have to have insurance. Amazingly, home inspectors never were required to have any sort of insurance. And when I say insurance, specifically general liability insurance. So if we burn a house down, we have insurance for that. What really surprises me is that the state has not come in and told us that we have to have errors and omissions insurance, sort of malpractice. That is not required. So I would really recommend to any of the agents out there, check with your inspector, make sure that they do have errors and omissions insurance in case they cause a problem or miss something during an inspection.
Well, hey, and one never knows. So
Never know.
For sure. Great information. I really appreciate you coming by.
Absolutely.
And taking a little break from the maelstrom it's already picking up out there. So
It is.
So that's great. Thanks again. Appreciate it, Jamie.
appreciated.
And thank you for viewing our latest edition of Raising the NASBAR. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll all talk to you soon. Take care.